Happy spooky season, everyone. I guess it's officially now spooky season, like socially acceptable spooky season. It's always spooky season for me. The first day of fall was a few days ago, so now it is officially the spooky season. And I live in New England. The temperature has finally got the memo that it's supposed to be fall, and it's beautiful, and I'm loving things. So, if you want to get into a spooky mood and expand your horror author list, it can be really overwhelming. There's so many authors who write horror and a lot of mainstream huge horror authors out there. So, I thought I would give you my list of my favorite horror authors that you might not have heard of. Spoiler alert, Stephen King is not on this list. A lot of these, though, especially the books that I'm going to mention, which the books that I mention are why they're my favorite horror authors. A lot of these are not going to be for the faint of heart. So if you're not a big horror fan, maybe don't start with these these names because a lot of their stories are really disturbing. But I'll talk about that. All right, so I know I said Stephen King is not on this list, and he's not, but his son, Joe Hill, is on this list. This also is in no particular order, by the way. When I first read Joe Hill, I didn't realize that he was Stephen King's son, but now that I know that, it totally makes sense. If you just look at pictures of Stephen King and Joe Hill, they look exactly the same. So I have no idea how I didn't realize that it was him. One of my favorite books of all time actually is The Fireman, which is by Joe Hill. It's a fantastic, like, atmospheric, and it's more of a, I don't want to say mystery, but it's more of like a suspenseful book than an actual horror book. You also might know him from the short story In the Tall Grass, which is a movie on Netflix. And also the TV show Nosferatu on Hulu was based off of Joe Hill's book Nosferatu, and the book was amazing. Can definitely recommend all of those three. If you watched my last video, you will know how much I love T. Kingfisher, and T. Kingfisher is the next author on this list. I loved The Hollow Places and The Twisted Ones. If you haven't read either of those and you're a horror fan, please, please, please go read them. I cannot wait to see what T. Kingfisher comes out with next. I will be reading all of their books. Now, Josh Malerman, I included on this list. I don't necessarily consider him to be one of the huge horror authors. I know that when Bird Box came out and was made into a Netflix movie that, you know, he kind of picked up traction and he became a household name for a while. But I read Bird Box before I watched it. And if you haven't watched the movie and you're debating between the movie and the book, please just read the book. The book was amazing. The movie was trash. Just do yourself a favor and read the book. It's very good and it's very scary. The next author on this list also shouldn't be a surprise to you if you have been following me on any of my social medias. Nick Cutter is a fantastic body horror author. Both of his books that I've read, The Deep and The Troop, both gave me nightmares. I had to pause them while I was reading them because they so deeply disturbed me. Just absolutely fantastic. Such great... I'm trying to think of how to word this. The gore is amazing. The suspense is fantastic. The relationships between the characters are so believable and so real. Just both of those are amazing. I need to buy both of them so that I can reread them all the time. If you're looking to add more translated works into your libraries at home, or just you want to read more translated works, I have to recommend Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce it. It'll be up on screen somewhere. Tender is the Flesh is the only book that I've read by this author, but I need to find more of their translated works because tender as the flesh. I know a lot of people talk about this, especially in the horror literature community. The last page of that book destroyed me. The book is amazing. It makes you really think about just how food is created and sourced and what it means to be human, and I just can't recommend it anymore. It's very good. I know this isn't a book recommendation list, but I had to include this author because of how the book affected me. So definitely one of my top horror authors. And these last two will also make sense if you've been following me at all on any of my social medias. I talk a lot about the books that I love, okay? Lee Mandelo wrote the book Summer Suns, which comes out, it should be out by the time this video comes out. It is one of the most anticipated spooky books of the season, and I totally understand why. I got this one early. It was so incredible. The way that Lee Mandelo builds worlds without spoon feeding it to you is just next level. The characters are so believable and so heartbreaking. I cannot wait for Lee Mandelo to write more horror because it just is so good. And another book that should be out when this comes out, The Death of Jane Lawrence gets published on October 5th. So it will be out on the 5th. I don't know if this video will be out by then, but if it is, definitely go get your hands on it. And that's written by Caitlin Starling. Now, I don't usually include romances in any of my lists. I don't read romance. I don't like romance. It's fine if you do, but I will judge you for it. I'm half kidding. I loved The Death of Jane Lawrence. Crimson Peak is probably one of my favorite like gothic horror romance situations for movies. If you like that and you liked The Haunting of Hill House, you will love this book. Just the way that she storytells, the way that you are just so immersed in the world and what's happening to these characters, and when something goes bump in the book, you think that it's happening right behind you. It's so easily, you can get lost in it so easily. And another one, I've only read this one book by her, but it was easily one of my favorite books this year, so I had to include her on this list. Let me know if you've read any of these authors and what your favorite book is by each of these authors. I didn't name all of the works written by each author, just the ones that I've read and that I really enjoyed. I know that Joe Hill has a ton of other books. I know that Josh Malerman has a ton of other books. Also, if you have any recommendations on other spooky reads and spooky authors that I should take a look at this spooky season or all year round, really, then let me know in the comments below. And thank you all for watching. And remember, I love you. You should love you. And stay spooky.